Hello, everyone. Welcome to. I was almost going to say welcome to the stream, but that is incorrect. Welcome to what books I've read in 2025. It is a little bit on the late side, but it's kind of a last minute thing I thought about. But it has been a while. It has been a while simply because I feel like I don't have time to do book reviews anymore as much as I would want to, simply because I have been focusing on streaming. I recently got a new job. Um, I had family matters, personal family matters I had to deal with as well as trying to figuring out my life essentially. And I am so sorry for my horrid hair. I couldn't handle the lighting and my hair decided to be like, you know what, let's make you more grey than you actually are. So it just looks kind of witchy. I'm so sorry. But hello, long time no see. I hope that you had an amazing year, amazing 2025, and that you have been reading. Have you been reading? Have you been playing games? Have you been enjoying yourself? Had a lovely Christmas? Had a lovely New Year? I'm sure you have read more than I have. I haven't read much, as I said. 2025 has been nuts. Has been nuts. If it's not one thing, it's another. But yeah, let's talk about books. So I still want to review books, but I feel like it's gonna be a yearly thing. Like doing, here is the books I have read that year, and here is what I think of them. I don't know whether to do like a ranking thing or something, but I would definitely give you my thoughts of all the books. And I definitely have a goal to read more this year. I've already finished one. And technically I've finished two, but I put the first book I read in this pile simply because I started reading it at the end of last year. But these are the books that I have read. We have Babel, Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil, Legends and Lattes, Tress and the Emerald Sea. You can't see what that is, but that is a manga. That is Apothecary Diaries, Miss Phiny Fisher Investigates, and Silent Reading. And one book as well. Excuse me. Sorry about that. Anyway, so we are gonna kick off. I don't know what to kick off with. Let's start with from the top. So we have Babel. Babel by R.F. Kuang. You will know who R.F. Kuang is. I believe she had written the Poppy Wars series, Yellowface. She had recently written Catanis, which is another book that I really desperate to read. But we have here is Babel. This was recommended from a book club that I have recently went to last year, I believe. Yeah, last year. Recently went to last year, and this is very much an interesting read. So I don't know how to very much describe this. It focuses around Robin Swift, who just recently came into London from China. This was set in around Victorian times, and he was adopted by a man who wanted him to learn not just English or different languages, but also the history behind language. So he wanted to learn Greek and Latin, and so that he'll be able to go into a University of Oxford, and they have a Babel Tower where they'll be able to teach international students the history behind languages and how it heavily affects the world, particularly around these silver bars, these magical silver bars that would change the course of how the world works, technology. It's basically it's change a political standard. It's basically the whole essence of how the world operates, and they really basically try to get the international students work to the bone when it comes to using different sort of languages to activate silver bars, these sort of silver bars along the way. Now, what I would say about Babel, it's very academic heavy. When I first got into this world, I was like, okay, whoa, okay, but it does have footnotes to try to explain, the research behind these different sort of languages, the history behind Babel, and history behind what these students are learning. You also have other characters as well, which unfortunately I have read this book. I was stupid. I forgot to write down notes, but we do have other characters as well. He has a best friend there from India who is probably one of my favorite characters. He was so funny. He was he's very much aware of what goes on around the world, and he's probably one of my favorites. And it really, really annoys me that I don't know what his name is. I should probably figure out. Rami. We have Rami, who is Robin's best friend from India. We also have Victoire, who is representative of African American, but also black woman, and she knows I think she's from France, but no, she's not from France. She's definitely from somewhere where she speaks French. And we also have Letty, who is from a well-known family, who is very much from an English well-off family, and people were kind of confused why she's going into Babel, because it was mostly focusing on international students, but she just says she wants to be useful. And yeah, that's pretty much the group. To give the overview of the summary, I'm so sorry to say this, especially when it comes to, and this, I do not mean this as an insult whatsoever. It does give off kind of Harry Potter vibes. Like they go into a completely different world. They're going into a school. They're learning like sort of different things. They're learning how their languages affects magic in the silver bars, and how it affects them, and how using different words would affect the silver bars in different ways. So learning, say torture would end up really torturing and killing someone if they hold the silver bars. It's kind of a little bit Harry Pottery, but it in a better way, in a very much more making you think sort of way. You have the main character who's still trying to process the world around him, and how his knowledge affects this. You have the funny guy who is very well aware of what goes on, but also he's quite optimistic. He's quite funny. He's quite amazing. Well, he is amazing, and he's quite, I don't know how to explain it, because he's from a family who lives the line of servitude towards a rich family. He's much more streetwise. So, and I feel like streetwise it does help them along the way. You also have Letty. I feel like she's the Hermione of the situation. Her and Rami always constantly batter heads toward and constantly fight, because they definitely have different opinions, but also there is like some sort of hate slash crush thing going on, which I'm not really fond of. And then you have Victoire, which I really want to get to know more. I feel like that she was the underling, and I feel like we should learn more from her. I feel like we don't really know much about her until the very end. And the world view, I do really love the world building. I think the world building is amazing. I love anything Victorian. They're set in London. They really give off like this gritty world that they try to do, which I definitely love. And I do love, the politics behind it as well. I'm not much of a political person. I would never understand politics either. Definitely not, but it really delves into the world trades, how London views other countries, especially around Victorian times. There is heavy sense of racism as well, and how London views different nationalities and different races, and it can get very political. So it was very interesting in that sense. Despite the fact that it's classified as a fantasy book, don't expect magic behind it. The only magic that you're going to get is their languages and their words, and how they view words in certain languages affects silver bars, and how it affects certain people and certain technologies, and how it advanced technology, and how it advanced politics and how it advanced the world in a sense. And it really shows that they definitely use the international students through that. So you do get a rebellion group as well to go against that system, and they don't like the idea of being used into the system that could go against their home countries. You do get how the Robin's adoptive father plays into this as well, and he has very negative views again, Robin's home country as well, and how it plays into that, how it delves deep into that. And we also have the characters themselves, that the group of four who have different opinions that ends up becoming detrimental and end up becoming consequential toward what is going to happen. I don't want to spoil much yet. I don't want to spoil anything in case you want to read this, because it is a very good book, but it does take a while to get into. Maybe it's because I'm not an academic person, but if you're into world trades, Victorian world, how politics play into it, very academic as well, then this is the book for you. But I'm not really a smart person. It took me a while to delve into it, but luckily there is a footnote to help you understand the world that R.F. Kuang has tried to build. I think I gave this a 4 out of 5. I really do love the world. I do love the message behind it. I do love what message R.F. Kuang is trying to come across. I love it. You can really feel that she put in so much research and so much work into this to make the world flow. So I do genuinely love that. So I can feel her hard work from this book, and so very much appreciate it. Will I reread this though? No. Even though I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars, I don't think I would have the mental capacity to reread it again, even though rereading it will probably help me understand the world a lot more. So maybe while I'm in the mood and while in a good headspace to read it, then I will reread it to help me understand, the politics and the world a bit more. It's a very heavy book, so I feel like you need to be in a good mindset, in a good headspace in order to read a heavy book such as Babel. Next book I have read on 2025 is Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil by V.E. Schwab. Now, I absolutely love V.E. Schwab. I think she does amazing when it comes to writing complex characters. I love her world building in The Darker Shade of Magic. I think her world building is probably one of my favorites. I think it was well written, and I just enjoyed Vicious as well. I love the complexity of the characters in Vicious. I really need to reread Vicious again. Vicious was a good. I remember really, really enjoying it, and I can't remember half of it, so I really need to reread it. But Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil, I was a little disappointed by it. I am so sorry. There are some parts I love and some parts I really dislike. We're going to start with the parts that I love. So it started off with a girl called, I don't know if you can see because of the mic, I'm so sorry. Started off with a girl called Maria. Maria was from the 1500s, and you know, she's a tomboy. She loves to climb things, she loves to run around. She grew up with brothers around her, so she wanted to play with brothers, and they're known for being active, and that's pretty much Maria. She has no interest in anything girly, even though you have to be prim and proper. Back then, you know, have to wear dresses, you have to learn to sew, and have to be, you know, make sure you grow up quickly so that you are prepared to get married. That is pretty much the extent of her life. And then all of a sudden, as she grows up, she's arranged to get married to a king, and she is very much not happy. You know, she absolutely hated being married to the king. She finds him absolutely abhorrent. You know, she's not allowed to be alone. You know, the king will always, you know, make sexist remarks at her. He only sees her as, you know, someone to have sex with and hoping to bear his child. She does not want that. So while she was out, she has spotted a lady in grey called Sabine. And when she followed Sabine into her little herb shop, and Sabine is just known for, you know, selling herbs, you know, making medicines and potions and poisons and things like that, all sorts, which got Maria interested. And Maria's like, I'm really worried about getting pregnant by my husband. I hate my husband. And Sabine is like, I have herbs that will help you prevent pregnancy, and they work. And then her and Sabine ended up becoming, you know, very acquainted with each other. Not only that, but with Maria also notices about her sexuality as well. While she finds her husband to be very, very abhorrent, she also became very interested in her maid as well. So I forgot to say that this is a toxic lesbian vampire fantasy book. And it's very interesting on paper. There's no denying that. But there are also some points which I am not into, which I will get into. But for starters, Maria. Now, as I say, V.E. Schwab is known for writing complex characters, and Maria is definitely one of them. We knew her as like what's it called? A tomboy. And, you know, she wants to get out of her marriage. You know, she's quite an independent girl. She's quite forward-thinking. She says her mind. Not a sort of woman to expect from the 1500s. And ends up, you know, becoming, you know, attracted to one of her maids, and also be well acquainted with Sabine to also understand herself a little bit more. So while she was hanging out with Sabine, Sabine had came out saying that she is some sort of vampire, and that is why she's been able to stay so young. And Maria said that she noticed her while she was 10, and now she had grown up, and Sabine seemed to look exactly the same. And so Sabine decided, you know what, I'm going to turn you into a vampire, which she did. And it really goes into detail about how a person's transformed into a vampire. Like it's sort of like quite torturous to feel like some sort of pain. You can feel your heart going and stone cold dead, and then and then all of a sudden they get the breath to life and they feel so stone cold, sort of the effects of a vampire. And then all of a sudden Maria killed Sabine as a vampire, which is not which is the first like sort of bit that makes me go what? Like I was getting really into it, but I decided to ride along with it because, you know, this is probably the start of the arc of where Maria is going to, because from then on, Maria decided to change her name to Sabine. And then that is the start of Sabine's arc, I feel like, where Maria is started to delve into other girls' lives. We also, yes, there is other girls, so it basically splits into going into different lives of 3 different girls, and the majority of time is Maria, because it started off in 1500s and then it goes through different decades. You see her traveling and going through different decades of going to see different people, hanging out with different people, understanding herself, understanding the world of vampires. So that I really, really love. So she is not the only vampire. She's been hanging out with other vampires. People have negative views against vampires and how they deal with them. What are the weaknesses, or what are the weaknesses, how to avoid them. And then but even the vampires themselves have their different ways of dealing with their hunger. So Maria is like sort of getting, different elements from different characters to understand how to deal with being a vampire. And she has her own opinions where she's like, oh well, if I'm hungry, I'll just go and hunt people and kill them. That is basically her logic. I remember there was one character who I absolutely love, who Maria stayed with. It was a man who is in a relationship with an artist, and he will only bite people who consent to being bitten, and he never ever kills. And I think that, and he will only do that because he knows how to sedate his hunger, he knows how to control his hunger. And the only person who consented to being bitten as well, quite enthusiastically, is his boyfriend, who is an artist, because he feels like getting his blood trained is what gives him inspiration to do art. And that kind of dynamic is quite interesting, because you don't have to be constantly hungry and hunting all the time in order to be a vampire. So I like that one. That was a very good section. I really do love that one. But then it goes in, but that didn't bode well with Sabine. Sabine didn't really understand it. She was trying to do her test to try and not get feeding for 5 days, not hunting people. But then it just didn't work out. She loves the thrill of hunting, she loves the thrill of chasing people, she loves the thrill of killing. So you kind of see the arc of Maria / Sabine into how the love into very villainous and quite murderous. No, not quite murderous. She really is murderous. And then we go into Charlotte. Charlotte is from the Victorian times, that she definitely had to, and she's from a well-off family. She felt like she had to be going with their ways, had to be a lady, she lives with her aunt, who is very on point with her, very, very strict with her, because she wants her to get married. Charlotte is not interested, but she is interested in her best friend, who is set off to marry Charlotte's brother. which obviously caused Charlotte to be absolutely heartbroken. And then that's when Sabine comes in, and then ended up, courting Charlotte. Charlotte went along with it and ends up, being in a very toxic and quite a horrifying relationship with Sabine, because Sabine was known to be very, very controlling. She wants Charlotte to be in a certain way. She did turn Charlotte into a vampire, and Charlotte and Maria is like, look, if you're hungry, you go and kill. That is our in our nature. We're going to kill. Here is someone who we're going to destroy their lives. We're going to drain their blood. This is how it's done. And Charlotte did not like that at all. It's like, do we really have to do that? That's quite horrific. That is very horrific. But she did it anyway to try and please Sabine, try to make her happy, because if she's not happy, then she's very, very scary. And there are some scary, disturbing moments throughout their relationship as well that shows just how toxic and controlling their relationship is. And then at one point, Maria decided to go and trick a family into thinking that they are quite poor and needed a place to stay. And then where she killed the parents, and Charlotte found a little boy, a sweet little boy, and Charlotte realized, oh my god, no, I can't kill this sweet little child. And Maria is like, well, we're gonna kill him. We know that he knows that we killed his parents. And then she went and killed him anyway. And that's when Charlotte decided, nope, no, I'm done with that. And then she ran the hell away. But the thing is, that doesn't mean she's out of the woods yet, because Maria is always tracking her relationship, tracking what she's doing. Always seems to know where she's going and what she's doing and who she's with, and constantly tracking Charlotte down. And Charlotte is terrified. And then now that's when we get into the modern day, where we meet Alice. We do see like somewhere at the beginning of the story, so it alternates between Maria and Alice. I can understand what V. Schwab is trying to do, so it tries to pick up two different worlds, and then as it goes through different decades, that's when everything merges together, because Maria does go integrate into Charlotte's and Alice's life at some point. It integrates into Charlotte's life, and then later on into Alice's life, while Charlotte is getting into Alice's life. It's very complicated. But Alice, I really, 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 really dislike. I think they're the biggest bad points of the book. I'm sorry, I really don't like Alice. I find her whiny, I find her boring, and she constantly talks about her sister, who I don't care. I'm sorry, I don't. But Alice is as a modern introverted girl. She just started university. I can't remember what course she did. As I say, I'm not really interested in Alice's life. She started college, and then she decided, you know what, I don't know if she was dragged into a party or decided to go into a party, but she was in the party, and she ended up meeting a girl with bright coloured hair, and she ended up having a one night stand with her, which is very unlike Alice. And then as she woke up with a horrifically horrid hangover, or she claimed as a hangover, but a horrid headache, and seen a note that is signed Lottie, basically saying, don't get close, goodbye, that sort of thing. And Alice, is getting effects of, her symptoms. She started feeling sick, she's feeling these weird urges, she's weak against sunlight. You know what's happened. While she's trying to find Lottie and figure out what is going on. And then throughout the way, she ends up meeting, different people, and different people is telling her, all about Maria or Sabine. really. You know, the main evil vampire that started this all. So that is pretty much the premise of the story. I like what V.E. Schwab was trying to do. I like what she was trying to do. I think at the start the premise was, you know, it started very strong, despite the fact that Alice's parts were a bit, to me, I didn't like Alice's parts at all. I do think Alice's parts did ruin the book, but I can see where the premises are going. And then as it goes, you know, you're meeting new characters, you're learning new things, and that is great. But then the ending comes. I'm not going to spoil the ending, but it ruined everything. I'm sorry, it did. The ending ruined everything, which makes the entire journey that we have through the book very pointless. It really did. I was absolutely heartbroken. Not heartbroken in a way of in the content of the book, but heartbroken in the way of how it ended, because it could have been better. It really could have. And I felt like it made reading this book pointless. It did. I am so sorry. Because I do love Sabine's character arc, I did give it a 3-star. I did give it a 3-star, but it could have been so much better. I felt like Alice could have written better, you know, without her constantly yammering on about her sister, and the ending could have been better as well. The ending was an absolute downfall. If you read it, you understand what I mean. Next on the book that I've read in 2025 is Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree. To figure out the name of that. So I have heard a lot of good things about this book. A cozy D&D world sort of book about a barbarian orc that wants to retire from D&D adventuring and own a coffee shop. Sounds amazing, right? And I heard a lot of good things from TikTok. I think it does sound pleasing to the eye, and I really do enjoy the premise of it. I don't like it's really funny because I don't like the D&D adventuring side of it. I don't like her old D&D party. I just don't like them. I just really don't. Especially one who is an absolute arse. And I don't like how they try to infiltrate, like, you know, her past D&D party on us. On her. I don't know why, but I do love, you know, her starting from rock bottom and slowly working up with her coffee shop. You know, it just started off as, you know, as an inspiration from the goblins. She's got a goblin invention. Is it goblin or gnomes? I'm not entirely sure, but I think it's goblin invention to make coffee. People do not know anything about what coffee is, so they just went along with it. And then she was getting feedback from other customers. They're like, oh, is there a way to make this sweeter? It's too bitter for me. I don't like hot drinks. Is there a way to make it like cold? Do you have like something to eat? And so they're gaining like a lot. She gains like workers. She gets like a female co-worker who ends up, you know, being her close acquaintance and enjoying, you know, working alongside her on this Legends and Lattes. And then Thimble is my favorite, the rat creature who absolutely loves the baking and is so good at baking, and he just doesn't talk as well. He's just like one of my favorites. I mean, he does talk, he whispers, but he's like one of my favorites. And I just like that progress. It's a nice cozy progress book. And then we get to the short story where it shows her, you know, time with the D&D party, and I really, really, really dislike it. It's an absolute blur. I don't particularly understand what happened, and I don't particularly knew what was going on or why is it relevant. Now that she's got a working coffee shop, she's got a working coffee shop, and she seems happy and content with her life. There is a bit of romance at the end, which I thought it was way too abrupt, especially for like two completely different characters in my head. I don't see them together, if I'm gonna be honest. I wasn't really fond of the romance. I thought they have like a better connection as friends, in my personal opinion. But that's just me. But yeah, it's a very, very cozy read. I think I gave this a 3 stars simply because I felt like the story at the end is just a no-go for me. I absolutely love Viv, the barbarian orc. I thought she was a fantastic protagonist. I do love her. Maybe a 3.5 out of 5. Again, I just don't like her bringing her old party into this, and her party was just awful. Her old D&D party is just bad, and I don't like them, but I like the other characters. Especially Thimble. I thought Thimble was absolutely great. There wasn't much when it comes to world building as well, because it mostly focuses around the coffee shop, and in a small town, in a small rural town, and it's just Viv, try to get some, advice on how to run, some sort of coffee shop from people who probably did not know what coffee is, and try to show that this is great, and it's just her building up, getting feedback, and slowly progressing along the way. And there was something about the stone as well. I don't particularly understand her and the stone, and it has some connection with the D&D party that I don't know. I might not know simply because I just wasn't interested in that. But I'm just more interested on the coffee. I feel like that's a mood at this point. It's all about the coffee. That coffee and Thimble. That is it. I love them. So 3.5 out of 5. Next, this is probably the first book I read last year. This is the first book I read from the book club. I'm not entirely sure this was the first book I read last year. But we have Tress of the Emerald Sea by Brandon Sanderson. Now, I haven't read much of Brandon Sanderson, at all. As a matter of fact, this is probably the first ever Brandon Sanderson book I have ever read. And I think I started The Final Empire, Mistborn, and I just stopped. Maybe because I'm too intimidated by the size. But I did have fans, who have read it, and I should probably really get into it. But this, I absolutely love. It's about a girl. She lives, a pretty much standard average life on a rock island. And her only interest is cups. Cups. She loves collecting cups. She loves looking at cups. She loves drinking from cups. She loves holding cups. She loves cups. That is her life. Cups. And she ends up, befriending with a boy that she has been talking to, and he tries to pull off as sort of a peasant who is just a gardener working for the manor. But Tress knows she's quite a smart lady. We see her intelligence and her overview and her viewpoint grow as the story goes, which is very, very nice. But she's quite intelligent from the beginning. She knows that she was actually been talking to the prince, and that he's lying just so he could connect with her a bit more. And she finds it to be very cute, and they are friends. And he's been, he just loves hanging out with her, wants an excuse to hang out with her, and she likes hanging out with him. And then all of a sudden, she's got the news that he has to sell off to be arranged to get married, or at least find a suitor to marry to. And then she sees him off, but she gets letters and different cups that he sends her around the world saying, I'm being as boring as possible. I'm being the worst person ever just so these women will not marry me, and it seems to be working. And then all of a sudden she's not getting any letters anymore. No cups, no letters from this boy whatsoever. And then she heard that the ship has come in, docked, and she was expecting the prince that she likes, her friend, who come out of the boat with a new girl. And it turns out that the guy was not him at all. It was somebody else with a very supermodel woman. And Tress is like, well, hang on a second, something is seriously wrong here. Where's my friend? What is happening? What is it going on? And she decided to tell her parents, you know what, something is not right there. I am gonna go out and find Charlie. Charlie, I think that's his name. Charlie. I think Charlie is his name. I could be wrong. Yeah, Charlie. There we go. It's her friend Charlie. And so she decided to tell her parents, I'm going to go off. And they're like, well, but no one has been off this rock island before. And she's like, I'm going to go. And they decided to help her. And I feel like when it comes to YA books, you don't really see much of parents helping their children, with what they want. And so they decided to help her. So that was a nice, refreshing take. So she disguised herself as a ship inspector so that she'll be able to get on the boat without anyone notice, and so she can sail off. And then that is where the adventure starts. She ends up meeting all sorts of different characters along the way, and she meets a talking rat who I absolutely love, named Huck. He was like one of my favorites. I think he's amazing. There are some people who don't like the rat, but I absolutely love the rat. I thought he was terrific. And then she ends up in a pirate crew, where the captain is seriously ill, and always wants the crew to go off to the dragon so that she can be cured and live forever. As far as what I understand, I don't know, the captain's goals are a bit messy for me, but what's important is that Tress connection with the other characters. You meet Ford, who is terrific. I absolutely love Ford. You have Anne, who really wants to learn how to shoot cannons, but she cannot aim cannons whatsoever. I believe that is correct. I'm unentirely sure of that. But one of the crew members, I just have problems with shooting the cannons, and it turns out that she is half blind, and so you do get see little elements of the crew members, and they're always an absolute delight. Ford is my favorite. He's been kind to Tress ever since. He tried to give her as much food as possible, and then she realized, no, this food is absolutely awful. Let me cook for you. And then everybody seems to really love Tress. The main goal, the reason why Tress is to get out, is to find Charlie, and she reckons that she needs to go out to see the sorceress, the Midnight Sea, because she has overheard back at the Rock Island that Charlie's father has sold him off to the sorceress in the Midnight Sea, and she went out to save him. So yeah, that is pretty much the premise of the story, and I very much love it. It's very linear. It's very linear, but also you get to see the element of the worlds as well. You also get to see the description of the sea as well, because sea isn't really a normal sea. It is a poisonous algae that does affect you. So that's the reason why not everyone can get off the Rock Island. You also have been told about the sorceress but the sorceress you don't get to see until the end. I don't know why that is. I've been seeing that quite a lot, really, that they try to hype up the villain and then at the end it just ends up not working out, in my humble opinion. And so yeah, but yeah, I give this a 4 out of 5 stars, simply because I do really, really, really love the book and the journey, and it's just, yeah, it's a very nice, cozy read. It's just the ending I find to be a little bit more abrupt than I would like. Next is a manga, and I'm sure it is a manga that you are all familiar with. The Apothecary Diaries. So I haven't been reading much Apothecary Diaries as I would like, because the books just keep raining upon me. And so, but Apothecary Diaries is a series I really want to get into because I absolutely love Apothecary Diaries. This is Mao Mao, who is the main protagonist of the Apothecary Diaries. She used to work for the apothecarist, and she is apothecarist. Well, her adoptive father, who works in apothecary himself, and she is basically learning. She loves anything to do with herbs, medicines, poisons, pretty much anything to do with that sort of elements. And as you see, there's a bit of a glare, but hopefully you can see. And she ends up getting kidnapped from her small town, and she ends up being sold off into the High Palace, where she ends up working for a courtesan as a food taster, and she loves it. As I say, she loves anything to do with poisons and medicines and herbs and things like that. And because she has high knowledge of these sort of things, she could just instantly know that the food is poisoned or not. But even though she loves digesting poisons, which I thought was quite a funny element. And she loves doing like little tests of herself. And then during that time, she ends up meeting a guy called Jinshi, who ends up becoming very highly interested in her. Well, he was interested in her because he has noticed that she is actually very, very intelligent. And so the way that to recognize her, or the girl is, and how intelligent she is, he puts up a sign that says, or put up a letter that says, "Girl with the freckles, stay where you are," to a bunch of all these girls, these handmaids, because that's how Mama started. She used to be a handmaid, or a maid of some sort, just doing the washing and the cleaning and anything along those lines. And she's like, "What? Okay, I'm the girl with the freckles. I guess I'd stay." And then she looked around and noticed, there are girls there, but even some girls with freckles that also decided to leave the room. And she realized, oh, they can't read yet. He's looking for someone who can read, and so she was trying to sneakily walk away, and he's like, no, we're gonna talk, and that's how she got the job working alongside a high courtesan, and be able to be there for the courtesan in any way she can, but mostly as a food taster, basically to taste the food for poisons before they can give the food to the courtesan, especially since for the fact that the courtesan she works for is the emperor's favorite, I presume. And she was also pregnant around the time as well, so they wanted someone with high knowledge of medicines to make sure that the courtesan is Gyoku, her name is, to make sure that she is okay. And along the way lines, she ends up getting caught up with these sort of strange things that is happening, and any mysteries that is happening within the High Palace. So another courtesan has been blaming the favorite courtesan of a curse that's been befallen onto women and babies as well, because babies have been dying at a very, very young age the past couple of times, and Mao Mao is there to investigate what is happening. with these mysteries. So there has been poisoning babies happening. There has been, talks about the woman ghost dancing on the wall, a curse that's befalling on them, and it just goes into, all these detail of the mysteries, while with her relationship developing with Jinchi. I absolutely love this series because even though there is some romance elements in it, it's not the main focus whatsoever. It is definitely a mystery series, and it can get political at the best of times, but it's mostly a very mystery based novels revolving around Mao Mao trying to figure out what is happening based on logic and what's it called, not deception, what's it called, I can't remember, but also trying to figure out theories based on the clues that she has been seeing. And so that is why I love the Apothecary Diaries. Speaking of more mysteries, we have Miss Phiny Fisher Investigates by Kerry Greenwood. I absolutely love the show. This is actually a reread. Actually, I have read this before, and I'm so sorry, I didn't give a star rating. 5 stars. 5 stars. Miss Phiny Fisher Investigates by Kerry Greenwood. This is actually a reread because I'm always looking for like women detectives in murder mysteries. I feel like there's not much happening. The only other female detective I could think of is Miss Marple by Agatha Christie, but Agatha Christie isn't known for she is known for Miss Marple, but people mostly know Agatha Christie for Henry Poirot. But I just want to look for, female detectives. So if there's any female detective books out there, please let me know. But I did very much enjoy Phiny Fisher. I just love her character. She's very sophisticated. She's a very, very quirky. She's very witty. She's very stylish, and she's just all around, she's very intelligent as well. She always gets underestimated. And Phiny Fisher, because this is set in 1920s Melbourne, but Phiny Fisher is like, no, I'm still going to investigate it, whether you like it or not. You see, I am a detective, and I am a smart one. I am a good one. I'm going to investigate. And so this murder there is happening of some sort of poison that has happened. So it revolves around a drug cocaine ring that might have some connection with a poison situation that has happened. No one is poisoned, like being killed by poison, but she has been invited by a very important figure in her family's life who said, listen, the way that you go about, investigating who stole someone's necklace, that was brilliant. So we're going to need your help. He basically asked Phiny Fisher to go to Melbourne, Australia, to figure out what's going on with his daughter, because his daughter, he says that she looks very frail, she looks very sick every time she goes with her husband, goes back with her husband. But when she's with us or with went off to Paris, she was perfectly fine. So he has suspected that there's some poisoning thing happens, particularly if it evolves around her and her husband. So, and that's why Phiny Fisher went to Melbourne, Australia first to investigate what is happening with poison. And there is some connection with what's going on with cocaine. Cocaine was very big around then, and there was also another case as well about a doctor targeting women who is looking to get rid of pregnancies, but he does it in a very unethical, illegal way, because back then there wasn't a legal way to get rid of pregnancies. So everything is done is very back alley, very harmful. Women died, and so that's another thing Phiny Fisher investigates, because her best friend is a doctor and realizes the pattern of what's been happening to who owns a women's hospital, and she has noticed a pattern of what's happening with women. She's got a patient, been brought a patient who was a victim through this unethical procedure, and she wants Finey Fisher to investigate what is happening, who is responsible for this, that could kill women, and also SA them, essentially. So it involves like two crimes: the main one, which is the poison and the cocaine, and the other one that is involving unethical, illegal pregnant termination, that ends up, harming, SAing and killing a lot of women. And as for Finey Fisher herself, I absolutely love her. I do love seeing a confident queen. Some people might say that she is a very Nancy Drew, like that means there's no sort of development going on. But personally, yes, I can understand that. In the show, there is more development with the character, especially when it comes to her relationships with her maid, with investigator Jack, and with other people around her, with her aunt as well. So yeah, I can see that, but I just love a confident queen. I feel like we just need more confident queens to do murder mysteries. So I give this one a 4.5 out of 5. I might have said 5 out of 5 in the 5 out of 5 stars in the main review, but 4.5 out of 5 stars. I would like to delve more into Finey Fisher's life while in the case, because I think the biggest issue when it comes to murder mysteries is that we know more about the minor characters more than the main characters, if that makes sense. So I feel like I don't know much about Finey Fisher, like at all. So I felt like I know more about the victim of the cocaine poison thing more than Finey Fisher, even though she's the main character. So yeah, I think 4.5, simply because I just love murder mysteries from a confident queen. And last but not least, more murder mysteries, everyone. But this is a danmei. For people who do not know what danmei is a Chinese term for BL. So this is a boys' love novel. As you know, I absolutely love boys' love. I love Grandmaster of Demonic Cultivation. Again, that's another danmei that involves murder mystery, but more in a supernatural sense. And then we have silent reading. Sorry for the Forbidden Planet sticker. Silent reading. So this revolves around, I'm sorry, I need to look up the names because they'll be, and I'm so sorry if I pronounce them incorrectly. Luo Wenzhao, which is him. He is a detective, and Fei Du, who is the son of the CEO, who had met Luo Wenzhao before. Just for simpler text, I'm just going to call him Fei Du and him Luo. Again, apologies for mispronouncing the names. So this revolves around a murder that has happened. Fei Du was just going about his day. He was aware of his surroundings. He was just going to get coffee. He met a delivery man, a girl barista, getting some coffee, and then went off to meet his friend at a party who was trying to get him to pick up women with him. Yep, that is the beginning, and then as the day goes on, there has been news circulating that there has been a murder happening. Someone was strangled by some sort of material and then left dead in a weird alleyway that not a lot of people know about. So that is the crux of the investigation, that if anyone has been left in that alleyway, somebody must know about this weird, strange alleyway, that a man has been strangled. And it turned out that this man who was strangled was a delivery man that Fei Du had seen in the coffee shop. And they try to get like some sort of connections happening with what's going on with the victim and any connections that he has with, you know, a certain, with his family, what goes on in the past. Like, is there anyone in the delivery man's and his mom's past, so that in the past, the village that might have like a connection with them, you know, any women that he had seen, any friends, what happened at the party, you know, Fei Du was around, and it involves, you know, Fei Du's friend. His friend ended up becoming the main suspect of this murder, because they reckoned that because he's a rich, spoiled boy, it might have something to do with it, because they found a really new phone that might have some connection. It's like, why is this delivery poor man who has to take care of his mom have, you know, a very up-to-date new phone? So they tried to bring in like little clues around, you know, try to get, you know, some connection. Somebody had found what possibly be a murder weapon, again that has lead to the main suspect. Constantly, then all of a sudden other people's family members have come in, and then they realize that they might have something to do, connection with the drugs, might have connection with rogue policemen. Oh my god, there's so much happening in this book. It's absolutely nuts, absolutely nuts whatsoever. To do with, you know, sex slavery as well. There is a lot of connections happening, and then there's more connecting with the other characters as well. So they found like the girl who died, who passed away like ages ago, that could have connection with this murder, ends up being connected to another girl in college who she sent the video to, and then she ends up telling someone else, and they're like, hang on a second, you told someone this? And then they look into that as well, and the more they look into it, the more they see the jigsaw puzzles that are forming together to create some sort of picture of what has been happening. There is a lot going on when it comes to the murder of this book. And what's great about this book is that not only we're getting into depth with what happens with the murder, but we're also getting to know the other characters as well. We have Luo, who is an investigator who had investigated Fei Du's crime, and Fei Du, we learned, is still affected by his mother's death. His mother's death that Luo was investigating at the time, and then claim it as a cold case. And we see their relationship dynamic going on between them as well, which is very good. Even though this is a danmei, a BL, there is no BL elements in this book at the moment, but you do see Fei Du's and Luo's relationship developing throughout the book. The way that the priest writes is flows absolutely nicely, but at the same time there's like no breaks, you know. But no, there is a break. So sometimes you would have like breathing space to get to know the characters, as well as realizing, hang on, this is a murder mystery book. Don't forget that there is a murder that had happened. You know, someone was strangled in some random alley. So but yeah, I do like that the author also gives us time to get to know these two guys as well. But you do see like the character development. This isn't the standalone book, this is the first book of the series, so it's really, so hopefully when the series progress, you do get some nice, you know, really nice character development, a relationship development going on. You also get to know Luo's, I don't want to say lankies, they're co-workers, and they're always a delight to get to know as well. You have one called Tao, who is Fei Du's friend, but also he's having issue finding a girlfriend despite the fact that he's a really sweet guy. And then you have I'm sorry, I can't remember her name, but a girl who also works under Luo, who is known to be quite ditzy, but she's tried to trying to do the best that she can, bless her heart. And she's actually very intelligent, but they keep calling her ditzy, which is a shame. But I do love the characters. But yeah, this is a very, very, very pleasant read. I'm going to give this a 4 out of 5 stars, simply because I did have to feel like I have to go back into the book so that I can refresh what has happened in order to make sense of what happened at that moment. So, like, for example, I felt like when they revealed who the victim is, they were like, oh my god, the victim has a tattoo on his face. And so on. And I'm like, do we know someone who had a tattoo on his face? And so I had to look back, and then I was like, oh my god, it's a delivery man in the coffee shop. So it's like, you really have to delve deep into the little tiny details along the way, otherwise you just end up going to miss it. So silent reading, if you ever want LGBTQ murder mystery book, I'm thinking of delving deep into this series. I will say this though, the first book doesn't have much of LGBTQ. Oh, well, it is an LGBTQ book, don't get me wrong, but there's not much, intimacy going on between those two, but there is relationship development. It gives off the sense that it is a slow burn. And that is oh my god, this is heavy. These are the books. Not dropping any. These are the books that I have read. And I am definitely reading more. I've already finished one. I'm reading the other. And my book club already announced the next book that we're going to read. So yeah, expect more books. My goal this year is 20. Will I read 20 books? Only time will tell. But yeah, this is the books that I have read. Is there anything that you're interested in? Is there anything that you want me to read more? Do you want me to read more Finally Fisher Investigate, Silent Reading? Because they are a series. Is there any books you recommend? Is there any of these books you're interested in? Let me know down in the comments section. But yeah. As I said before, I'm definitely going to do this yearly. I think it makes more sense, and I definitely try to do this like a ranking order as well. So I'll definitely do some note writing as I read the books, and then as I rate them, see where my ranking stands when it comes to these books. So out of all of them, I think the book I dislike the most is Bury the Bones of the Midnight Soil. I'm sorry, I know there's fans out there, but Alice really did piss me off. I'm so sorry. So that is the book I dislike, and the book I think is my favorite. I think it would have to be The Apothecary Diaries. The Apothecary Diaries just hits my heart. So yeah, I do expect some mysteries, so murder mysteries, because I do love murder mysteries. But yeah, just because that is my least favorite book, or just because Bury the Bones in the Midnight Soil is my least favorite book, doesn't mean it's not a good book. Maybe you do enjoy Bury the Bones in the Midnight Soil. There are some very good elements in my opinion. It's just there is also bad parts that I feel like does ruin the book for me more. But as I say, there are fans out there, and just because I didn't mention the other books as like my favorites or least favorites doesn't mean you shouldn't try them out. If you love more academic, more focus into languages and history, I do recommend Babel. If you want a more cozy fantasy element, I do recommend Legends and Lattes. And if you want to look for with underlining romance, but also want other things to be a focal point, like politics and mysteries that's been going around, I do recommend The Apothecary Diaries. And if you're looking for any Danmei that doesn't, but it's not like by a mainstream author, like the author of Heaven's Official Blessing or Grand Master of Demonic Cultivation, and you want to get out of that mainstream, silent reading I do recommend. I haven't seen a lot of people talk about books written by priests, so yeah, I always say do check out the books, because your opinions might be different from mine, and that is absolutely okay, because it's different opinions is what makes the world go round, especially when it comes to books. Everyone loves a book, everyone hates a book, and everyone hates a book that people loves, and people love and there's someone who loves a book that people hates. That is all perfectly fine. Anyway, do check out my streaming channels. I have been streaming a lot lately. I stream in both Twitch and on YouTube. My channels are on the description or somewhere on the screen, I'm sure. But yeah, thank you ever so much for joining me in my 2020, what I've read in 2025, and hopefully I shall see you next year for what I read in 2026. Do take care, everyone. Bye bye.